In it was a heart that was still beating slightly, constantly dripping with blood. His heart had been torn out with bare hands. This scene was hard to believe, but it was happening to him right now. As he struggled to believe it, the hand holding his heart slowly tightened its grip. The heart, which had still been beating slightly under the force of the grip, gradually began to flatten. No, he shook his head in terror, begging for mercy. This was his heart after all. But the owner of the hand holding it paid no attention to his pleas. He continued to squeeze harder and harder. Finally, under his eyes filled with extreme terror, Lin Fan squeezed the heart to a pulp. Pieces of his heart flew everywhere. The man with the gun let out a final scream of terror, then breathed his last on the spot. He fell slowly to the floor, filled with endless fear. Gulu, the remaining two on the side, had witnessed this scene with their own eyes. They couldn't help but swallow hard repeatedly. When Lin Fan, who had just ripped out a heart and squeezed it to a pulp with his bare hands, turned his gaze to them, they collapsed like never before. Plopping down onto the ground, the person in front of them was definitely not human. Definitely not human. That terrifying speed just now, and that terrifying ability to pluck stars with bare hands. No ordinary person could do that. This completely defied all reason. "Spare us! Spare us!" the two begged, their faces deathly pale. Lin Fan didn't respond to them. He just took out a pack of wet wipes on his own, pulled one out and gently wiped the blood off his hands, as well as the filth left from the heart exploding. This action seemed very calm, but in the eyes of the two begging for mercy, it was the death knell. Once the death knell rang, it would be their end. Damn it. Those who can survive in this post-apocalyptic mess all have a ruthless streak. Seeing that Lin Fan had no intention of letting them go at all, one of them suddenly grew desperate. He jumped up from the ground suddenly, holding a machete and slashing straight at Lin Fan's head. His machete was sharpened very keenly. It could even chop down zombies. The number of zombies he had killed these days was more than he could count on one hand. At this moment, he was confident. As long as his machete hit solidly, even if Lin Fan wasn't human, the injury would still be severe. It might even allow him to turn the tables, maybe even get a reversal kill. One of life's three great illusions. I can stage a comeback from a losing battle, cutting through the air and descending, filled with his determination to turn the tables. But in the next moment, all of this was shattered. No fancy moves, just pure speed and strength. The same hand that had ripped out a heart with bare hands slowly lifted as the machete fell. Then the machete, which had been descending unstoppably, suddenly stopped. He'd caught the machete with his bare hand. This hand had accomplished another feat. The man who'd wanted to counterattack opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. All he felt was a numbness in his hand, and the machete slipped from his grasp. Then a flash of cold light slashed across his neck. A single slash, no hesitation. Lin Fan, who'd caught the blade with his bare hand, decapitated him on the spot. Now only one man remained. While Lin Fan was dealing with the second man, this last man quietly snuck behind Lin Fan and thrust his sharpened machete hard into Lin Fan's lower back. Unless you could decapitate with one slash, stabbing was more lethal than slashing. If the blade could pierce deep into the lower back, no matter how inhuman Lin Fan was, he'd have to drop to the ground, clutching his waist and screaming. It was a good plan, and his choice was the optimal one. But unfortunately, with the enhancement from the blood purification liquid, Lin Fan had been enhanced in every aspect, not just terrifying strength and speed, but also a physique beyond what any normal human could achieve. Without a strong physique, You couldn't support such terrifying strength and speed. The sharp blade only pierced a tiny bit of skin before getting stuck by the steel-like muscles underneath. No matter how hard the man pushed, he couldn't drive it further in. How is this possible? He stammered. The last remaining man was stunned. When Lin Fan slowly turned his head to look at him, he completely broke down. He dropped his machete and ran toward the store's entrance. He had to escape. The person in front of him was definitely not human. He was a monster, plain and simple. Staying here meant death. Driven by an overwhelming survival instinct, he ran at an incredible speed. Even an Olympic sprint champion might not have been able to run this fast. This wasn't an exaggeration. There was once a cyclist who was chased by a wild black bear during a race, threatened by death. He'd broken the world record in a single burst. Before that incident, he'd just been an ordinary cyclist, facing this record-breaking escape driven by survival. A normal person might have let him get away. But this man, who'd broken the sprint record, wasn't up against a normal person. He was up against a terrifying zombie, who had a system and had been enhanced beyond measure. A zombie monarch destined to stand at the peak in the future. The man tried to run away. Lin Fan hurled the machete in his hand. As the man ran, the machete pierced straight through his kidney. Then carried by the remaining force, it nailed into the wooden cabinet of the cash register. A shrill scream echoed out. The loud noise immediately attracted the attention of the wandering zombies outside. Lin Fan had originally planned to deal with the man slowly, especially after the man had dared to stab him in the lower back. But seeing this scene, he frowned slightly. He wasn't afraid of zombies. But Wang Mengmeng couldn't handle them. If all the zombies were attracted here, he'd have to spend extra effort to clean them up. So he abandoned his plan to torture the man, walked over, grabbed the man by the scruff of his neck, and dragged him outside like he was carrying a chick, taking the initiative to meet the zombies drawn by the noise, catching the scent of fresh blood. The zombies instantly became frantic. Their slow, wandering steps suddenly turned into a sprint. As soon as the zombies gathered, Lin Fan ran away from the convenience store. The zombies were firmly drawn by the smell of blood and followed him. As the distance grew, more and more zombies were attracted, surrounding the man with the pierced kidney from all directions. The man had resigned himself to death. But when he saw Lin Fan attracting so many zombies, he suddenly burst into wild laughter. He was definitely going to die, but his enemy Lin Fan would definitely meet a bad end too. Zombies were everywhere around them. Even if Lin Fan was a monster, he'd only have one way to go: death. Ha ha, brainless fool. Die with me. Be my funeral sacrifice. The thought of Lin Fan dying sent him into a state of crazy excitement. Lin Fan just smiled and said nothing. Be his funeral sacrifice? Who did he think he was? The man thought Lin Fan didn't know he was doomed and continued his crazy, excited laughter. But when the zombies swarmed forward and started biting him, he couldn't laugh anymore. It wasn't because of the pain, but because he saw that all the swarming zombies only bit him. Lin Fan was standing right in front of him. But the zombies didn't touch him at all. He even saw that when zombies were about to bump into Lin Fan, they would subconsciously dodge. Zombies dodging a human? How is that possible? He stared wide-eyed and looked up at Lin Fan's face. The bright sunlight outside allowed him to see clearly. Those scarlet, brutal eyes, exactly like a zombie's. You really aren't human. He said his final words, then stopped breathing as the zombies gnawed on him. Before he died, he finally realized one thing. Lin Fan really wasn't human, but he'd realized it too late. Lin Fan casually tossed his tattered body aside, let the zombies roar and feast, then turned to leave. When the zombies on the way encountered him, they didn't dare to block his path at all. If you looked down from above, you could see a not-so-strong figure cutting through the horde of zombies like a ship through waves. Inside the convenience store, Wang Mengmeng was waiting anxiously. When she saw Lin Fan's figure return, she couldn't hold back her emotions any longer and threw herself into Lin Fan's arms, her hands tightly wrapping around his waist. Afraid that if she let go, she'd never see him again, she wanted to merge herself into his body. Just then, the system notification sounded again. She wanted to merge herself into his body. Just then, the system notification sounded again. Ding. Your wife Wang Mengmeng's affection for you has increased, reaching the green tenderness stage. Reward: Affection Upgrade Gift Pack. Host: Keep up the good work. Make your wife wholeheartedly devoted to you soon, and feel at ease to bear your children. The system issued another reward, this time reaching the green tenderness stage. This was the stage of love at first sight. As their affection continued to warm up, Wang Mengmeng began to develop genuine feelings for Lin Fan. Her heart gradually became attached to him, with no more resistance. Lin Fan smiled at this, not just because of the system's new reward, but also because Wang Mengmeng had reached the green tenderness stage with him. From now on, she would no longer resist having his child. This was perfect. He didn't waste any time and chose to claim the system gift pack directly. The small gift pack slowly opened, revealing an item in a glow of light, X-ray potion effect. After consumption, you will gain X-ray vision, which can see through illusions and objects. After reading the item description, Lin Fan was shocked. X-ray vision. He believed that any man would want this ability in the dead of night. Every time he imagined having this ability, he'd be happy all night. Not to mention using it to make money. Just walking down the street and seeing all kinds of beautiful scenery passing by would be enough to make him happy. And what did the female neighbor next door do at night? He believed many people wanted to know, and Lin Fan had also imagined it. But it had only been a fantasy. Such an ability was unrealistic to obtain. But now he had the chance to get it. The system had directly rewarded it to him. He looked down at the person tightly hugging him. She really was his money tree, or rather his treasure. Every reward from this girl had never disappointed him. After sighing again in his heart, Lin Fan drank the potion. He couldn't wait a second. For this long-awaited ability, the potion was contained in a small jade bottle, like the potion. He couldn't wait a second. For this long-awaited ability, the potion was contained in a small jade bottle. Like a magic potion, it was a milky white liquid, thick and viscous when drunk. But once it reached his throat, it slid down smoothly. There was no violent medicinal power, only a warm feeling flowing through his pupils, like applying a warm towel. When the warmth faded, Lin Fan felt his vision change. Whenever he focused his attention to see through something, the original obstruction would gradually fade and finally become completely transparent. Lin Fan's first reaction was to lower his head and look at the person in his arms. Her clothes gradually became transparent, revealing the scene every man dreamed of. This kind of peeking was filled with an unprecedented thrill. Lin Fan could barely hold himself back. His blood starting to boil, Wang Mengmeng held Lin Fan tightly, enjoying the reliable embrace that made her feel safe. But suddenly, something pressed against her. After Lin Fan's previous teachings, she was no longer the naive girl she used to be. She immediately realized what it was, her face turning red instantly. "You're hurt," her face flushed. She pulled back a little, her words stammering. Lin Fan didn't reply. He lifted her up and placed her on the cash register. "Hurt? Don't be silly. It was just a small scratch that broke the skin. Even if he'd been cut a few times, in the current atmosphere, he wouldn't even frown. Wang Mengmeng let out a cry of surprise. And what happened next went without saying. Eventually things calmed down. Wang Mengmeng's hair was damp with sweat, and she was out of breath. But compared to before, there was more tenderness in her eyes and a look of happiness on her face. After being intimate with Lin Fan, she was now willing to have his child. Even though having a child with a zombie sounded absurd, she was willing to do it from the bottom of her heart. Lin Fan saw this, gently helped her adjust her clothes. He got up to dress, wet hair tips dangling, cleaned up the mess in the convenience store. Two reckless intruders, their bodies were casually tossed onto the street, fed to the wandering zombies, then fetched a mop, began cleaning the blood stains, disinfected the area simultaneously. I helped you, Wang Mengmeng, regain your composure. Also got dressed, took the mop to help. Lin Fan didn't refuse. Wang Mengmeng mopped the floor. She opened a bottle of toilet water, sprinkled it to mask the stench of blood. With their combined efforts, the convenience store quickly returned to normal. But Lin Fan didn't stop there. Examined the damaged roller shutter door. He went out again. Wang Mengmeng wasn't worried this time. She waited quietly in the store, because she knew Lin Fan would never abandon her. This was certainly true. Not long after, Lin Fan returned, driving a three-wheeler, towing several large steel frames. A zombie driving a three-wheeler. The scene was almost too surreal. The vehicle's engine noise attracted a horde of zombies trailing behind. Yet they moved in an orderly fashion, lacking the usual chaos of gathering zombies. Resembled a foreman leading workers heading to a construction site. Wang Mengmeng watched through the window, thought the apocalypse wasn't so terrible after all. Zombies weren't that frightening. Of course, she knew this was an illusion. The reason was the uniqueness of the strange zombie she loved. Were all zombies in this world so special? Or was hers the only exception? Wang Mengmeng watched Lin Fan park the three-wheeler and drive away the zombies. She muttered absent-mindedly, "How terrible apocalyptic zombies are." The world learned on day one. Otherwise, why would survivors hide? Struggling to survive. Do they dislike going out? Certainly not. It's all due to zombies' brutality. Worse than in movies, not even mentioning infectivity. Even ordinary zombies are beyond average people's handling. Nothing like the shambling ones in films. Upon spotting prey, they charge like wild horses. Not to mention the terrifying secondary mutation zombies. Wang Mengmeng had seen one before, annihilated an armed squad. That truly terrified her. Hid at home, too scared to venture out, until supplies ran out. She couldn't take it anymore and emerged. But now, she didn't too scared to venture out, until supplies ran out. She couldn't take it anymore and emerged. But now, she didn't know what to say. Outside, Lin Fan wasn't overthinking. He retrieved steel frames via three-wheeler to reinforce the convenience store entrance, making future break-ins harder. Stainless steel bars dismantled from a bank door, once installed and secured. Forcing entry would be extremely difficult. Being part of a bank door, once installed and secured, forcing entry would be extremely difficult. Being part of a bank's nighttime security door, even cutting with a grinder, would take extensive time. Only someone with his terrifying strength could dismantle and transport them. Drove the trailing zombies away to play. Lin Fan began fortifying the store, planning to convert the food-stocked shop into a shelter. He was now a married zombie, needed to secure his home. Wang Mengmeng sat behind the counter, chin resting on her hands, watched Lin Fan bustling for their home. Her happiness grew, occasionally giggled foolishly. Lin Fan scratched his head at the sight. This girl he chose to bear his children was quite adorably clueless. Look at that silliness. Yet he didn't mind. Clueless. Perhaps not as capable as shrewd women. Who could assist a man but had advantages? Namely, obedience. He had a system. Didn't need anyone's assistance. Only desired obedience. Wang Meng suited him perfectly and appealed to him. Hoped she'd bear more children, making life even more perfect. Lost in thought, Lin Fan smiled faintly. This was the life. So what if he transmigrated as a zombie? As long as he broadened his perspective. Indifference was for others. But first, he needed to fix his earlier mistake. Brought back a gill net. After reinforcing the door, he'd teach the fish in the man-made lake why flowers are so red and nets so tight. The fish in the man-made lake at ease, feeding on bait, unaware of being targeted. Today, a fool dumped dozens of kilograms of bait, deciding to feast to their heart's content. Until full. Calling the bait dumper a fool dumped dozens of kilograms of bait, deciding to feast to their heart's content until full. Calling the bait dumper a fool. Not ungratefulness, but stating fact. Only a fool would use dozens of kilograms of bait for fishing. Fish already full, who'd nibble? Your tiny hook bait. Ridiculous. Thus only a fool would do such a thing. The fool was unaware. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care. Here for revenge. Carrying a prepared gillnet, as a true gentleman, never delayed revenge. After fortifying the store, he headed straight there. It was dusk. Visibility was limited, but with his spotlight glasses, unaffected, dusk's hazy light seemed like daytime to him. Carrying the gillnet to the lake attracted several zombies, circling their own kind. Initially planned to enter the water, upon seeing the zombies, changed his mind. With his current physical condition, entering wouldn't harm him. His mind. With his current physical condition, entering wouldn't harm him. But soaked clothes would be uncomfortable. Quickly decided to deploy the net, tied the net's cord to a zombie's waist. The bound zombie stared blankly, uncomprehending. Lin Fan offered no explanation. Once the net was secured, he positioned behind the zombie. Found a spot, kicked forcefully. Splash! The zombie fell into the lake. Then with the act of driving them away, the dazed zombie walked to the opposite bank. Higher level bloodlines can command zombies? Zombie lords summoning hordes. Utilize this ability to attack targets. Lin Fan's bloodline not yet reached the zombie lord, but basic commands were easy. Using zombies to fish required unusual creativity. Splash! Zombies don't need to breathe. Waded to the opposite bank. The process is smooth. Net deployed quickly. Repeated the process. Zombies kicked into the lake. Multiple gill nets set. Lin Fan stood lakeside. Watched the nets. Smize kicked into the lake. Multiple gill nets set. Lin Fan stood lakeside. Watched the nets. Smiled faintly. Refuse a toast. Now drink the forfeit. You'll regret it. But this matter wasn't over yet. He focused his mind and activated his clairvoyant ability. The lake water gradually faded. It turned transparent in his field of vision. Every fish swimming inside could no longer hide. Lin Fan broke into a mischievous smile. Then he continued with the nets. The free labor he just used was thrown into the water again. But this time it wasn't to cast nets. Instead, it was to drive out the fish hiding at the lake bottom. Splash! Splash! Several zombies thrashed about in the water. The entire man-made lake turned turbid. The fish in the lake, frightened, began to dart around. Then they all crashed into the gillnets. 3-layered gillnets. Neither big nor small fish could escape. Lin Fan watched all this through his clairvoyant eyes. The frustration he felt from fishing during the day was finally thoroughly vented. But he didn't actually plan to catch every last fish. This place was almost a food source. So once enough fish were in the nets, he stopped driving them. After the free labor pulled up the cast nets, they saw the fresh fish being hauled up one by one. The several free laborers instantly grew excited, all eager to take big bites. This kind of fresh flesh and blood had an incomparable allure for them. But with Lin Fan, who hadn't lost his sanity, suppressing them, they wanted to move but didn't dare. Growing anxious and pacing around in circles, Lin Fan was amused by them. These zombies actually looked quite cute. Of course, this was only in his eyes. If humans encountered them, they would definitely teach humans what cruelty truly was, what terror truly was. Roar! Lin Fan let out a roar. The chaotic zombies immediately fell silent. Then they stood in line one by one. Though they were all crooked, they still formed a line. At least they weren't chaotic. Getting zombies to line up was almost impossible. But now it was done. Lin Fan smiled in satisfaction at this sight. No wonder every boss likes to manage underlings. This feeling was indeed quite good. Once the line was formed, he finally started distributing the fish. These zombies had all put in effort. Naturally, he wouldn't be stingy. He wasn't like those greedy bosses. Each zombie was given several fish, all of decent size. They instantly grew overjoyed and picked up the fish, not even the fish bones. They even swallowed the fish intestines. If a single fish scale fell to the ground, they would pick it up and eat it. Their motto was, "Not a single bit goes to waste." Lin Fan couldn't even bear to look. This was simply disgracing their kind as zombies. What a gluttonous reincarnation! He kicked the zombie that was lying on the ground, licking fish scales. Lin Fan didn't glance at them again. Instead, he turned to pack the remaining fish into buckets, besides sashimi for himself. He also planned to make fish soup, to nourish Wang Meng Meng, so she would have more abundant breast milk later. Just as Lin Fan was busy packing the fish, the girl from the building by the lake started making a fuss again. She found her brother. "Brother, come look quickly. Zombies are casting nets to catch fish, and they're lining up to eat." She found her brother, who was already lying on the bed resting, and shook him vigorously, saying, "Shall you be good? Brother has to go out to find food early tomorrow. If you can't sleep, play with your phone. I'll play with you tomorrow when I get back after work." Her brother's face was full of helplessness, mixed with a hint of tiredness. He said zombies casting nets to catch fish and lining up to eat. Why not say they're building rockets to go to space and build a space station? I'm telling the truth. I'm not joking with you. The girl was so anxious she almost jumped. That strange zombie is still collecting the fish from the nets. Unlike this afternoon, he won't leave right away. As long as you get up to look, you'll definitely see it. To prove I'm not lying. But her brother was convinced it was impossible. He had no intention of getting up at all. This made her extremely anxious. She really wasn't lying. After some pestering, her brother still refused to get up. Helpless, she had to leave and went back to the window. "Oh, right? I can record it. Then brother won't disbelieve me anymore." A sudden idea popped into her head. She quickly took out her phone and turned on the video recording function. She aimed it at the scene and started recording. The night had completely fallen. Normal video mode couldn't capture the picture, so she clicked on night recording mode. Night recording mode, the phone's flashlight would turn on, but she didn't care about that. Zombies have very poor eyesight, and they're on the 10th floor now. They definitely can't see this. She had tested this before, but what she never expected. As soon as her phone's flashlight turned on, the strange zombie she wanted to film suddenly looked up. His scarlet, violent eyes instantly locked onto her who was trying to record. Faced with this situation, she was so scared she almost screamed. She quickly raised her hand and tightly covered her mouth. In just a split second, she knew she had gotten herself into trouble. A zombie that can command other zombies to work obediently and line up neatly when eating. Could such a special zombie be an ordinary zombie? Obviously not. Could such a special zombie be an ordinary zombie? Obviously not. Attracting the attention of such a zombie, could she possibly end up well? Under her brother's protection, she had indeed been a bit naive, still retaining the innocence of a young girl. But that didn't mean anything now. Now she regretted it deeply, regretted her actions for attracting such a terrifying zombie. Would she and her brother still survive? She was so scared she whimpered and cried. It wasn't just fear. There was also guilt for endangering her brother. She blamed herself for being so reckless. But what happened next made her forget her crying in an instant. Because the strange zombie she thought would cause trouble didn't act as she expected. He didn't rush upstairs to cause trouble. Not only did he not cause trouble, instead, after seeing her, the voyeur, he even broke into a gentle smile. A zombie smiled at her. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she would never have believed it. Although she had been well protected, she still knew and understood very well that such terrifying monsters had no humanity at all. If you were caught by them, you would definitely be devoured. When the apocalypse arrived, a female neighbor she had been close to was eaten by her own family members, who had turned into zombies. They even ate their own family. It showed how inhumane zombies could be. But now, he smiled at her, and it was a very gentle smile. Under the moonlit night, he smiled like a kind elder brother next door. Could it be that he was a human pretending to be a zombie? Faced with this unbelievable situation, this was the only possibility she could think of. That this strange zombie was actually a human in disguise, just like a zombie. His violent scarlet eyes were just some kind of colored contact lenses. Only this explanation could account for why he could fish, and why he would fly into a rage and use gill nets after failing to catch fish, and why now, even though he had discovered her peeking, he had no intention of causing trouble. He even smiled gently at her. But that didn't make sense either. If he was a human in disguise, he would definitely not escape the zombies. Sense of smell, which was as sharp as a dog's. Eyes could be disguised with colored contacts, but the scent on his body could never be disguised. Not to mention commanding zombies to work and obey him obediently. The more she thought about it, the more curious she became. The deeper the doubts in her mind grew. She even felt an urge to find out more. For a moment, she completely forgot her fear. Hiding behind the window, she stuck half her head out and carefully observed the strange zombie by the lake. By the man-made lake, Lin Fan was somewhat amused by this bold little girl. But he wasn't a real zombie after all. Naturally, he wouldn't trouble her. As long as she didn't provoke him, he was quite kind to his former kind. He smiled slightly as a response. Then he continued to collect the fish from the nets and put them all into a large bucket. He had often cast nets to catch fish when he was a child. He was quite skilled at this. It didn't take long to finish packing everything. The bucket was full. It probably weighed around 20 to 25 kilograms for just him and Wang Meng Meng to eat. As long as they kept the fish in water, they could eat for a long time.